But if you know anything about like robots and tech and stuff, they wouldn't be bipedal, like humanoid.
Yeah, there'd be no reason to make. That's a terrible design.
Awful design.
That is.
Welcome to the Nerd News Podcast, starring Tyler Waltz.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Nerd News. My name is Tyler Waltz, and with me this week is...
I'm DJ Dangler.
Do you just want to give the audience who might not know who you are just a brief overview of like who you are, what you do, what you like?
Sure. I'm a stand-up comedian and a writer for Bob and Tom, a radio show for anybody here under 45.
Yeah.
I've been a comedian all of my adult life, and I have been a nerd for before my adult life and through current. I have been a nerd so long. I remember when nerds had to be good at shit, not just be bad at sports.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when being a nerd was like not easy.
Yeah.
Like,
I do have a question for you. Did you go through, like, for me being a nerd was like a drastic, it was exponential, right?
You went on like a parabolic. Like,
yeah. Like I didn't start out with like all the stuff, right? Like in middle school, I played like video games, but it was just like your Call of Duties and stuff. And then I played like an RPG where it's like Fallout, where it's like, oh, I'm building a character. That's cool. And then it was like, okay, well, that's neat. Well, what if I tried this? And then it was like your Skyrims. And eventually it was, oh, there's a comic book shop. And then it was D&D. And now it's Magic. And now it's Warhammer.
And now you're deep in.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say, again, I identified as part of the tribe early.
Yeah.
But I think I was kind of a weird member of the tribe also. I grew up in a small town.
Same.
And like I played sports.
Okay.
And so I wasn't, it was hard to be a nerd when you've only got 200 kids in your class.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those, there aren't many outsiders.
Yeah.
But
Not that out small class yet, but I think I had like 52.
Gotcha. Yeah. So probably even harder to be like pigeonholed because it's one of those, hey, sometimes a kid's going to have to be a shortstop. You're like, I don't know how to play baseball. Well, we need nine kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I never did any sports. My three things in high school was band.
Yeah.
I was into all the band stuff, marching, pep band. I was the drum major.
Yeah.
And then robotics and drama club. Those were my three things.
You're also substantially younger than me, right? You're like
28.
28.
Yeah.
Punk kid.
Yeah.
But it's good for me to know. So it's also one of those, you would have been like 6 or 7 when I was getting high and watching BattleBots in college.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
BattleBots is the shit.
I'm going to say, like, was that like formative to you?
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah.
I can remember that it was on Tuesday nights.
Oh, okay. I got
Just to let you know that I'm not fronting my nerd cred.
My interest in like the robots and stuff is because I grew up watching the monster and like kaiju movies with my mom.
Okay.
So like my biggest thing that I'm a fan of is Godzilla. Like
Gotcha.
After we get done recording, that's actually what I'm doing. Is
You're going to go watch
meeting
Godzilla -1? Or is that what it's... Yeah.
Yeah. So we can also make a review about it and stuff like that.
Love it.
But like the big, and then from there I was like, okay, well, what is this like? You know, like Ultraman. I was like, okay, that's cool. And then it was Gundam, and I was like, okay, robots are dope.
I have a question on that because I frequently say, as a nerd, my whole life, I hate robots in comic books.
Okay.
I hate them because they make it just like, hey, look, we made a robot that's just as strong as Superman. And I'm like, oh, I think they would probably make a robot that can deliver my mail first. Does that make like?
Did. Yeah. And they did in real life.
They did. You're right. Yeah, like that is. But I've always kind of hated it that like robots were just kind of and also.
Yeah.
Like I hated that so much.
One thing that I thought was interesting was, for some odd reason, in all of media and comic books and stuff, robot was always like the thing to either fight the big bad or the big bad that showed up. But if you know anything about like robots and tech and stuff, they wouldn't be bipedal, like humanoid.
There'd be no reason to make. That's a terrible design.
Awful design.
That is.
But everybody loves the shit out of it, you know.
And yeah, no, I even love that though. Like when you talk about kaiju, because like there would be no reason to have limbs at over 100 feet tall. Like,
no, not at all.
The amount of energy that would go into it would destroy that creature. Like that creature would fall apart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that nonsense.
Yeah, that's what makes it so much fun.
I see that in some nerd stuff that I am aware of, but not deep into. Like, I see that water, but I'm not swimming in.
Yeah.
And I would love to hear your choice on it. But I know a lot of nerds right now are talking about Godzilla vs. Superman.
Okay. And who I think would win?
Is that an easy answer for you? Or are you like, I would love to see that?
So I get in trouble a lot when asked like hypotheticals because I'm not ever good with the face value question. I'm the guy that's like, it depends. I'm always the it depends
I understand
guy.
and I embrace that.
So what version of Superman and what version of Godzilla? I think that factors in a lot.
I am unfamiliar with Godzilla power scaling.
Okay.
Like, I don't know where he's the toughest. In my head, I have an idea of how tough he is.
The toughest version of Godzilla versus the toughest version of Superman, I think Superman takes it just for the simple fact that it's Superman.
Toughest version of Superman can destroy the planet.
Yeah, which Godzilla has done
Okay.
a few times.
Okay.
However, it's the whole... I don't think Godzilla as a creature understands kryptonite. You
Gotcha.
know?
Yeah, he's not going to outsmart him.
Right.
But like, in my head, Superman flies through Godzilla's head like a bullet.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Yeah.
It also kind of depends on the version of Godzilla. He might have a hard time getting through, you know?
Gotcha.
But I do think, unfortunately, as much as I adore Godzilla, I think Superman's got it most times.
Gotcha. But it's also one of those, Superman can do things that are so ridiculous that...
That's why I never really liked Superman.
He's a hard character to get behind.
Yeah.
He is only fun in, like, moral quandaries.
Yes.
Like, I love, like, when people have, like, weird... what's the one? I forget the storyline, but, like, aliens come, and every time they see a superhero act out, they're going to kill so many humans.
Oh, I never heard of that.
That's a great super... I think it's like a year one type throwback, like, to the JLA. And
That's cool.
But
I
like,
can get behind that.
Those types of stories are great. But yeah, but to get a good Superman story...
Yep.
I would say Superman story success rates are lower than any sketch comedy shows.
Yeah. Well, you know...
and those are low.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. You know Kevin Eggleston? Who's a comic? Yeah.
Yes.
His favorite hero is Superman. And he's talked about how it's the fact that the reason that he is so good is because he could literally do anything. And
he doesn't take over the world.
And his
he isn't a
superpower
monster.
is his morality. Yeah. So I get that. It's not enough flavor for me, which is why almost all of my favorite stuff is like the evil Superman, like Invincible or The Boys or like the Watchmen with like Dr. Manhattan. Yeah. Because to me, that's way more realistic of how it would go down. So the camaraderie in taking out the ultimate is a better story for me.
I think that will tie in a little bit to just what you wanted to talk about earlier. I like when people approach that honestly, like what would a godlike being
be like?
I have a hard time with that with when I'm playing D&D. Adjusting creatures that live for 30 years with creatures that live with 300 years or 600 years
which is actually the topic that we were going to talk about today is the future of RPGs. I do want to hear this though, because it's funny to me that in D&D, if you're playing an elf, 200 years is nothing. Most races are dead. So when you're creating a character, most people, and I'm not saying people are boring, but if you look at like the statistics of characters that are created, it's a lot of humans.
Yeah.
It's a lot of elves. It's a lot of dwarves, right? It's a lot of the human-like, but everybody just wants to be a 20 to 30-year-old elf or human. Like that's the most common character.
Yeah.
But it's like there's so many other things. So you're playing like one of my favorite races was lizard folk.
Yeah.
Like I thought lizard folk, like a druid wizard kind of thing was great. It was cool. Constitution wisdom, loved it. But it's like they lived till 35.
Yeah.
So like I'm sitting around the table and everybody's going through their characters and I'm like, I'm 7 years old because that's when I hit maturity.
Yep.
And if this campaign goes past 10 years, it's a toss-up.
I'm probably going to be an old man. I'm going to be real cranky.
Yeah.
I'm going to be deep into my lizard folk.
Yeah.
that'd be a super fun
character.
Yeah. All of my opinions are based on the first half of my interaction, on the first half of the story's interactions.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you a thing. I've met dwarves, all the same. And,
but yeah, so I love D&D, and something that I was hoping that we could discuss is where do you see the future of tabletop gaming? Because from my perspective, we are in like an amazing place to be because it's more popular than ever. We just got the D&D movie, regardless of whether you think it was good or not. I thought it was fine. However, with more and 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 more people playing it, the more watered down it's getting. You know?
Yes.
So it's becoming more mainstream. It's becoming more acceptable and easy to play. So the people that are like legacy players are kind of struggling where it's at now. But I feel like we're in a valley that everybody can fit into, but it's got to go somewhere, you know?
Yeah. The future of tabletop gaming, I think, is in the customization and like specific to, I think you're going to get a lot of things catered to a market.
Okay.
Like, I think that's what you're.
So everything's just going to niche up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, and I'm not excited about that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it'll be. I think, especially with like 3D printing becoming as popular as it is, and some of those, even in just since COVID, the difference between the order a character, like the thing, like Hero Forge, or is there a name for that type of whatever?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the general market's called, but I think everybody knows Hero Forge.
It's progressed tenfold, fivefold at least, right? Like it used to be hey, I can kind of get a few ideas, but now it's one of those where I think there are probably some where you can get your face on them, and like that's not. I think that's the future. Yeah, I don't know, but I can't imagine it going any other way.
I can't either. The only thing that kind of worried me recently was Baldur's Gate 3.
The game being, like, what worried you about it?
So, did you play it?
I have not.
Okay, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, you got to take a step back and be like, okay, this is not going to be the new standard, and I need to understand that, you know?
Okay.
So, it's like, it's setting a tone. It's so close to D&D. Like, if you play a lot of D&D, you'll be able to pick out certain things like, okay, they altered this spell. Video games are different than tabletops. You know, it's very catered.
Right, there's a difference with time and...
Yeah. But it was so good that my brain was like, are we going to work ourselves out of tabletops?
That, when you first said it, it feels like such a patent old man answer that I didn't...
Like,
no, but what I want to say is the answer is... the phone and the iPad, and like that's probably what it'll be. Like it'll probably turn into a phone game. It'll probably before you do that though, think about how much fun you had playing online during COVID, and I think that translates more universally than getting people to get. As I love a good tabletop game. I love sitting around with my friends.
I couldn't do the Zoom stuff.
Really?
I couldn't do it. I did for about a month.
Okay.
And then I was just like, I need to have people here. I'm very much we can have fun through Zoom. I'm not denying that. I'm not taking that away from people. For me personally, being there, ordering the food, having drinks, rolling dice, getting excited around the table, it couldn't do that for me. It just wasn't the same.
I understand, and you're right. I'm going to say I have probably played more D&D Zoom than in person.
I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. Because I was talking about being very nerdy. I didn't get into D&D until like 2019.
Oh, okay. So very recently.
I was always adjacent. Like I always knew about it. Like obviously. But I never had a circle of friends that was doing it. Yeah. And like that's a hard thing to start up on your own. And it's not like I was aching for stuff to do. Yeah. like there was enough. I always knew I would like it. Yeah. And as soon as I got into it, I did. It got into some friends of mine had like a game night, and we started playing something, and we started modifying it so much that it was almost a role-playing game. And then they were like, hey, why don't we just go ahead and break the glass on that? Yeah. And then we did, and I was like, yeah, no, this was great. This was real fun.
Yeah. And it's funny because I started D&D with 5th edition. When I was in like high school, there was in Greenfield, Indiana, a comic shop that was doing a 5th edition like game night, right? And I was like, okay, I've never played. This is the new thing. They're advertising it as like the D&D for new players. And I went. They had like a guest DM. They had a bunch of tables just testing out the books. And ever since then, I was hooked. So I started with 5th edition and just been playing ever since.
Yeah.
But
so have you gone back and played others like
played
retroactively?
Some 3.5. I had a friend group that was, or I guess not. It's one of those things where it's like they were people I knew that played, and I was like, yeah, I'll join your thing, right?
Yeah.
And
they were 3.5 loyalists.
Yeah, they played 3.5, which was fun. It was fine. It's one of those things where it comes like if I'm playing a long campaign, I don't think we can keep everybody on board for as long, which is kind of why it's getting streamlined, you know?
With 5 or with 3.5?
With 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, because it got to the point where some of the customization stuff, and I'm always a customized guy.
Yeah.
Like I'm always the more the better.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, there are a lot of people that kind of, it's like overwhelming, you know? Like you get decision paralysis, and about half to 2/3 of the group were brand new to 3.5.
Yeah.
So it wasn't quite getting there.
Yeah. This is not the conversation that like that I'm super comfortable with.
Okay.
Right. But part of me pushes back against, and I understand it, and I don't know the answer. Part of me pushes back against 5E's no races are evil position.
Okay.
Does that
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, and like there is some weirdness to it where I'm like, orcs are bad, and I don't think they're based on any culture on this planet.
I think there's a lot of people that have qualms with
with races being bad.
Well, not even just that. It's this is a fantasy land. If you're making connections, it's kind of on you is like a general sentiment. And I understand, but you can also kind of accept that like, okay, you got to kind of look at who made it. You know, I think that's a big factor in it, because you can look at certain things and based on who made it, and look, you can be like, okay, something's weird here.
For sure.
You know,
and totally the what are the kind of lizardy guys that are clearly Asian.
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember.
It's not the UNT, is it?
The GIF.
Oh, the GIF. Okay.
Yeah, like,
the GIF. Yeah.
Like
I think they're technically bugs. I think.
Okay.
I think by the lore, they're like a bug species that was altered by the Cthulhu-looking things.
The mind flayers.
Mind flayers.
Gotcha. Yeah. I think you're right. But like there are some things I'm like, that's clearly like
yeah. And I think that's where people get in trouble, is because there's the clear ones, and then that line's now blurred. You know, so now it's like, okay, we got to be careful. And I understand. That's the thing.
I do want to be sensitive, but there's also part of me where I'm like, yeah, but some ideas are awesome.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give up the idea of a big incense shaker. And I don't think that is necessarily stealing from.
Yeah. I think for me, instead of, like you said, like the orcs are the bad guys, I think that they would have an easier time with that if they wrote conditionally around stories. So like the orcs aren't always the bad guys. However, because of their like history or something, they are more inclined for blank, you know, or depending on their position, right? So make the issue about like a resource struggle. Don't make it because of who they are.
Yeah.
You know? Because like I think most people, especially my age, grew up with like Lord of the Rings. So when you think of an orc, you think of like the Uruk-hai and the bad guys and the ones that are eating people and the, you know, and then you go to like Skyrim and it's like, okay, they're literally just like a marauder, not even a marauder, but they're like a traveling group. Like this isn't their land. They're just trying to make their, so it's like, yeah, it's whiplash depending on the nerdom that you're in. You know?
Yeah. I used to, in the game is no longer fun, but I used to like love it on road trips or nonsense. When I was with other nerds, we would just play the game of how tall is an elf.
Okay.
And we would just kind of, how tall is a giant? How like whatever, like we would just kind of set each other's parameters and see if we agreed on the world.
Yeah, I think elves are like 5'8". I think they're slightly shorter, if not, I guess, normal average size for a human.
I would say an average elf is 6 foot.
Oh, you think they're taller?
But only weighs about like 130, 140.
So they're gangly.
Yeah, like the Joker would have an elf build. I think he's like supposed to be like 6'6", but whatever. Oh,
That's interesting.
yeah.
Because that's also it's so funny to me when you bring stuff up like that, because it is so different, right? Like every single nerdum, it's not even close to the same. I think the only universal is like dwarves.
Even
like
then, though,
a dwarf is always like stocky, big, bulky. They got the hammers and they're miners, right? Like that's kind of like
almost always.
I can only think of maybe one series where they don't necessarily fit that archetype.
Yeah. I also love when people will get like hooked up on like one little facet of nerd minutia and like just that's the defining character. If your dwarf women don't have beards,
I'm
off
out.
the table.
Yeah.
I do love that. And I'm certain I am guilty of some of it as well.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing about fantasy is like I don't think I could ever bring myself to be upset at somebody's fantasy thing, because it's not supposed to be real.
I want that to be true.
Yeah.
In my real life,
Right.
I tacitly object to the vampires in Twilight.
Yes.
Flip the table over, outraged, mad.
Yeah.
Nope. If it I can't, and I don't know. I don't think it's just because the source material isn't for me.
Yeah.
I think it's because it's dog shit.
It is dog
It's
shit.
one of those like nothing kills them. They're
just great.
Yeah.
So it's funny that you bring that up. I hate when something is objectively bad by just logistical standards, but because of the audience around it, you can't genuinely argue the bad side of it, you know? So like if you're talking to a Twilight person about why it's objectively like these things don't make sense, anger, just there's no breaking that wall, right? Because my thing is and I've talked about it a couple times, is the new 3 Star Wars movies. Right? The Last Jedi, I think, is an objectively bad movie, even if you completely remove Star Wars, because the plot 180s 3 times to where the actions of other people contradict the thing that you just saw. So the plot is just nonsensical. We start with a setup, it's changed, and then it ends, but the ending has nothing to do with any of the 3 setups that they pushed for the conclusion.
All right.
Right. And I say that, and people are like, oh, you just hate the new Star Wars. It's like, no.
I hate bad movies.
I hate bad movies. Yeah.
I hope I like allow myself a workaround with that. I'm okay liking stuff that's not great.
Yeah, same.
Just like, or even, I love the X-Men. I grew up loving the X-Men. It's always bothered me that Storm's mutation was controlling the weather.
That was a weird one. Like that didn't make sense.
Too dumb.
Love the character Storm.
She's great.
Phenomenal.
Super stupid source of her power.
Yeah.
Like, does not make sense on any level. No other animals or creatures can do anything like that. So she's just magic.
I kind of felt the same way about Jean Grey or Phoenix. Yeah. I wasn't the biggest X-Men fan. I'm like vaguely familiar, so if I reference something wrong, don't crucify me. Yeah. But like the mutants that make sense to me are like Beast.
Yeah.
You know, Wolverine. The ones that are actual like creature oriented. The being able to control other things, like what is Jean Grey's thing? Like she saps power from others, right? Like that's her whole thing. That's Rogue. Okay, cool. So I am getting them mixed up.
Yeah.
So what creature does that? You know?
Yeah. It prevents me from liking a lot of stuff because like I'll see the weaknesses in the thing that I like that I've kind of like tried to defend against or not even defend against but justify. So then when I see it in something new and foreign to me, I can immediately be like, nope, they can't do that. Like when Heroes came out and people liked it, I'm like, no, you can't become good at swordsmanship in one day. Knock it down. Like, throw it away. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you don't like it is a weird thing where like I'm such a nerd. Sometimes it's hard for me to like stuff because I'm like, oh, I know where this is gonna go. Just because, sorry, man, there's only so much.
The genre that I struggle liking the most is cyberpunk. Cyberpunk has every element that I adore, but there's hardly any that I enjoy because they take something in it and ruin it for me.
Yeah.
I think the closest was Cyberpunk 2077, honestly.
Yeah.
And even they didn't quite nail it for me. Because, like, the idea of the future being, like, just
dingy
marketing. Yeah,
oh,
it's just like, it's future and everything is better, but so much worse. I love that idea. And people are getting, like, the implants and, like, the, cybernetics, and, like, we're on our phones all the time. Yeah. Imagine if you could just put your phone in your body. Like, I love it.
Have you ever read Transmetropolitan?
No, I haven't.
It's excellent. Like, it's kind of a formative early cyberpunk. Spider Jerusalem is the name of, like, the main character.
Cool.
He's kind of a Hunter S. Thompson analog.
Okay.
But it's a very fun. So for me, because, like, that was kind of my first, I mean, if you don't count Blade Runner, do you count that as cyberpunk?
I think technically.
Kind of proto-cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's one of those weird things where it's, like, on the edge of it, where it's, like, it's technically cyberpunk because at the time...
there wasn't that.
There wasn't really that.
It's one of those, like, when people go back and say that philosopher was an existentialist, and you're like, well, okay.
That wasn't really around.
But but they were leaning that way. It was that thought process or whatever. But Transmetropolitan would have been, like, my first. So now whenever any of it happens, everything kind of feels like the sequel to that.
Okay.
And it allows for it in a friendly way. Because it's just one of those, like, that is what... Like, it's a little dismissive of artists in that genre, I suppose. Because it's saying none of your stuff's ever going to matter as much as the one I saw, which is a super asshole position to take.
I mean, it's honest, though, because normally the first thing you see in something is your favorite.
Because everything is... All nerd culture is built in the shadow of Star Wars.
Of something else.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of people, I joke around that it's the Doctor effect. Because if you watch Doctor Who, 9 times out of 10, somebody's favorite is the first one they saw.
Yeah.
So if you hopped in during David Tennant, he'll always be your favorite.
Yeah.
Matt Smith, whoever. So, like, the first Doctor I ever saw was Eccleston. And he's not a very popular
But he's your favorite.
But he was the first one I saw, So,
I'll buy that.
Like Star Wars, that was the first sci-fi I saw. I do have to say, I don't know if Star Wars is my favorite sci-fi now, but it still holds a very close... Like, it is what I judge other sci-fis based on,
My age, I was born during I grew up in kind of a Star Wars drought.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
Like, between...
The 80s.
Yeah, like I was born in the last month of 80.
Okay.
Right? So, like... when the VHS tapes were re-released when I was in high school, I can remember I spent, and this was also, like, those weren't shown on TV at all. Like, you didn't see them very often, I can remember thinking that the stormtroopers were robots.
Oh, okay.
Like, for most of my childhood. And then, like, when I watched the movies again, I was like, oh, there were people in there.
Yeah.
Like, I was like 14 or 15. I was like, ooh. But because I had gotten so used to the Foot Clan and G.I. Joe shooting robots and all of that, I was like, holy hell, those are people.
Those are people.
Clones. But whatever, I didn't know that yet.
And here's the thing. I think Star Wars kind of set the precedent for, like, retconning stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because it wasn't very popular to do that, but then The Phantom Menace came out. And then it's like, okay.
I would lean against that just because comic books do it so hard. Like, there's so much retconning. Like, I wouldn't give the credit to Star Wars. Because, like, when I was a kid, Wolverine didn't have bone claws.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like, those weren't...
Gotcha.
Those claws were a side effect of Weapon X.
Okay. Oh, okay.
That's
so
huge.
he just had his regeneration.
Yep, that was it. And that was it. And then Origins came out in the late 90s, early aughts.
Yep.
And I'm wrong now. And so, like, that's a weird thing to try to...
Man, that's a bummer.
Like,
it makes you... It's funny because if you know that, even though it is true, it makes you sound like the old man that's like, back in my day.
Yeah, even though, but I'm like, but that's how it was. Like, and then one author changed it.
Yeah. My favorite X-Men was always Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
I always liked Nightcrawler.
I hear that a lot. Like, he's a very popular one.
I don't think people actually understand what or who he is, though.
Yeah.
I think people just see the teleporting and stuff, and they're like, oh, that's cool.
No, he's a complicated character. I don't know if I was always a big kid, and I think I, like, always had a hard time identifying with svelte characters in any fashion.
Yeah.
Like it was I'm not a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I'm a Rhino.
Yeah.
Like it was murr.
I completely understand.
So like it's one of those I was talking about it recently. This was so awful, but I realized all of my favorite comic book characters
are the big ones.
I love Hellboy and Beast and The Thing.
Okay.
Like
Nice.
any beefcake, any big thick boy.
For me, it was Captain America.
Yeah.
Captain America was my favorite. I
He
liked.
was also good when you were a kid. Like he was a good character. Like he was written well. There were good stories.
I hopped in on the Captain America series where he is technically a rogue agent.
Yeah.
Because he didn't agree with like a government policy. So he was like, no, that's not the America I stand for.
Yeah.
And it was when he had like his black suit.
Brubaker.
I think so. Yeah.
He wrote. Brubaker wrote great. Yeah.
Yeah, but I loved Captain America. Captain America to me does what Superman does, but better.
Okay.
Because he has the same moral, like when it comes to morals, he is the moral pillar, we go, of Marvel. He is the unshakable will, but he's not all powerful. So for him, it is like a war of attrition. It's like, I might die here. It is very possible for me to die here, but I'm going to do it because I know it's right.
Yeah.
You don't have that risk with Superman, you know?
Do you like your Cap peak level human or a little bit super?
Peak level human.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the super is where it becomes more like Superman. I like the man that beats the odds.
Gotcha.
As soon as you become the more powerful thing, it's no longer to me a huge triumphant story. It is a you did your job.
Gotcha. I like that.
Yeah.
Have you read any Hellboy?
Yeah.
I can see you really liking it. Then.
I like Hellboy.
Like the kind of reluctant he is because he is super.
Yeah.
It's just his job.
Yep.
Like, what are you doing? My job.
Yep. Yeah. But I think that's going to wrap up part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 where we're going to be talking about wrestling and you're going to try and convince me to be a wrestling fan.
Okay.
Cool.
Oh, all right. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Welcome back to part 2 and we're going to be talking about wrestling.
Yeah.
So I just kind of want to start with where I am with wrestling. Okay. So when I was middle school, high school was probably peak video game wrestling. So I knew everything I knew about wrestling through what they put in the video games.
Gotcha.
So my era of wrestling was like Kane.
Yeah.
Like he was always my favorite was Kane.
Yeah.
So it was like Kane, Undertaker, which I think Undertaker's been in it for so long.
So long.
If you say that you started watching or you watched when Undertaker was in it, that doesn't.
Yeah, that means you are somewhere between 5 and 70 years old.
Yeah. So for me, my favorite wrestler was always Kane. There was like Triple H and what was his group with? DX. Yeah. So that is really the last time I had anything to do with wrestling.
Okay.
There's a YouTuber that I love called Super Eye Patch Wolf.
Okay.
Who does wrestling like breakdowns and like historical like lore. That I've seen a few of those.
Yeah.
But I've never watched it.
So. Do you enjoy watching the lore?
Yes.
So like you like the idea of like Hulk Hogan and Harley race and that is more interesting than the current?
Than watching the matches.
I understand that.
I like the story of it.
Do you like the nonsense story or the real life story?
I feel like
and
it's
so hard to separate the two. I get that.
Yeah.
But do you like the dark side of the ring type stuff or do you okay.
Yes. That was my first introduction to his videos.
Gotcha.
Was that kind of stuff. And how I don't know his name. Hopefully you do. There was a guy that they were trying to make the new face. But now he's kind of like a villain because it didn't work out. Because
in current wrestling?
I think it might be current. Okay. I'm not sure because that's the thing. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But for years they tried to make him the face, but nobody really liked him because it felt shoehorned in.
Gotcha.
It was like right after John Cena. I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. I know you were talking about Roman Reigns.
That's it, Roman.
Yeah, and I have strong opinions on.
I love it.
I have never given a shit about Roman Reigns.
Okay.
To this day. And a lot of my nerd friends are like, oh, this is the best storytelling that they've ever done in WWE in the last 20 years or whatever.
The current or when they were trying to make him a hero?
The current. The stuff now. People think that he has redeemed himself. He is the champion. He is currently in the longest reign of the modern era.
Okay.
So Reigns used to be back before television, reigns used to go for years at a time.
Okay.
No big deal. But then Hulk Hogan kind of had a big long reign also. He reigned for a few years in a row. But since him, everybody has lost at every few pay-per-views.
To keep it spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's my question. It is now public. I know they fought it for years that wrestling is fake.
Yep.
Like, sorry.
Not a real fight. Yep.
Sorry, everybody,
Yeah.
if I'm spoiling it
Yep.
for you. So here's my disconnect in it. I love the lore in it because to me, if I'm not watching the matches, it feels more real.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah. So if I'm listening and it's like, oh, this person was blah, 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 and then their fall from grace. I love that story. But when I watch the matches, the connection that it's fake hits me. So it's like, okay, well, yeah, this person had the title for that long because they wrote him to have the title that long. You know?
Right. Yes. I understand that. And it is a hard thing to get past because I can't pretend that doesn't bother me also.
Yeah.
It's also the weirdest thing for me to like explain to a non-wrestling fan is I know it's bad and I don't care.
That's so many people have told me that.
And you're like, but then why would you do it?
Yep.
Because I think all sports are fake.
To a certain degree, I
I
agree.
do. Like, I think the NBA is fixed, as in, if somebody is too good at it, they'll change the rules. That's a true thing. Like,
okay.
goaltending was instituted because guys got too good at it. Like,
Okay.
And I think that's fixed. Like, I know enough about sports to know that it's not on the level. Like,
That's interesting. So when you said fixed, my brain agreed, but in a completely different way. So when you said that like the NBA was fixed, my thought was when somebody gets too good, there are clearly teams that have more money because they are in areas that bring in more money. Right? So if somebody gets
can't
too
compete
good,
against the Yankees. Yeah.
yes. So if somebody gets too good, they get traded to the good teams. So it always keeps this like pyramid of your top people. So it's fixed in the fact that the Yankees can get all the best people or the, you know.
Yeah, but like I guess I've never thought it was fair. And I also like I grew up playing a bunch of sports but never being a good sports fan. Because somebody can just leave or what, like I don't know, I also just didn't have that much connection to 12 men I've never met playing a game. Like I don't really have that.
I've never been able to make it through a sport.
But I love the slam dunk contest, and that's what pro wrestling is too. Like I like the stunts and the goofy.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, like I like that.
Now, I hate when there's a disconnect between like shitting on wrestling and liking wrestling. The people that say it's all fake and it's dumb and it's fake and it's fake, I still appreciate so much the athleticism that goes into it. Because like I can sit there and be like, oh yeah, this is fake. However, that dude's physique is wild. He looks like the closest we're ever going to get to a comic book character.
My clearest example, whenever any of like my sports friends want to get dismissive about wrestling and being fake or phony, it was easier for Brock Lesnar to be the toughest man in the world than to pretend to be the toughest man in the world every day.
Yeah.
It was like easier, not more fun, easier.
Yeah.
It was easier for him to fight twice a year than to fake fight every night. And as a road comic for years, there are a lot of weird parallels that I'm like, oh no, being on the road's so hard. Like those guys that can stay in shape while traveling, that's a hard gig.
Yeah.
But that is not why I like it. I like it because I'm a hillbilly kid that likes watching tough guys smack each other.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly, that's what got me into it. I love it that you mentioned the video game. I lapsed out of fandom from like middle school to high school.
Okay.
Right at that age when I was like, I don't know if I'm comfortable people knowing just how white trash I really am. Like I can totally cop to that.
I also heard that around the peak of the video games, because I think for me it was like WWE versus or SmackDown versus Raw, like 2007, 2008. I guess that's kind of when it became more commercial, because the video games took off and like they had these stories that were more milquetoast, might be a good way to put it, where they weren't
PG.
PG.
if you want to know what it is, it's because Vince McMahon's dirtbag wife got into politics.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know anything about that.
She was part of the Trump cabinet.
Really?
It's gross. Like it's gross.
Yeah.
Full on disgusting.
Nice. I'll have to look into that. I had no idea. That's interesting.
Yeah, like that's why they went from TV 14 or TVM to TV 14 or whatever it was. They went from TV 14 to TV PG. That was the PG era. Yeah.
So here's the thing: if I am zooming out, if I'm not a wrestling fan, and I hear that from an outsider's perspective, that's a good business decision, kind of. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like the amount of money that they raked in was probably heaps.
Yeah.
Over what they were. So I get it, but you're also betraying your fandom, right?
I think the WWE cares more about you than me. Because its fans are gonna eat their garbage.
Yeah.
We are in. Like, that's a hard thing for me to say and still enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. New eyes matter more than old eyes. And that is not true of many industries.
You don't think so?
No, I don't. I think most people would rather keep the ones they have than lose.
Okay.
I think.
I'm going to politely disagree.
Okay.
Because I think most industry, especially big things, like in part one, we talked a little bit about Wizards, right?
Yeah.
They're more interested in getting new players because
we're in. Because I'm gonna buy the next one.
I'm gonna buy the next book and stuff like that. So I think unless you are a legacy thing that is like a cash cow,
Yeah.
I don't think there's very many that aren't just seeking the new. It's like this was funny. Cell phone plans, right?
Yeah.
They always have deals for switching and breaking contracts, but if you've been a customer for 5 years,
eat it.
You can go
Suck it, nerd.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, you're right.
Exactly.
Yeah, you might be right.
But I think that's kind of where we are in the world today. Is they've made this? I would say late 90s to early 2000s. It was all about keeping your audience.
Yeah.
I think the digital era has completely flipped that on its head, though.
You're replaceable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a bummer.
It is. Well, you're probably right, but it definitely doesn't disprove my argument that they care more about you than me. But yeah, so like that's a hard thing for me to get across, but it's definitely accurate.
Yeah. The thing for me that is, I don't want to say I'm bitter about because that sounds dumb at 28 and it's a kid's show, right? But I was always, and this is a bit blasphemous considering how much I talk about loving Pokemon. I was more of a Digimon fan growing up.
Okay.
So part of me was very upset that Digimon, they had the focus on like our fans love our stuff.
Yeah.
They're still very much like that. So they almost exclusively do Japanese stuff now because they're still very successful there. So they've just taking it home. However, I'm still holding on. Like I'm checking out, I'm getting the translations. Love Digimon.
That is fun with wrestling. It is also fun, and this is me embracing it and loving it. I can have a totally different opinion than an equal fan. Like I have no love for Roman Reigns. I have none. I don't find him captivating in any fashion at all.
So what happened? I know from a video that I've seen, basically, he was supposed to be the face. He was supposed to be the new John Cena.
I would love to explain this real quickly. I think in WWE, when Hulk Hogan left WWF and went to WCW, I think it broke Vince McMahon's heart. Because then a bunch of other guys left too. A bunch of big names left.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, Vince McMahon realized he's never going to let anybody get as big as WWE.
Okay.
Period. So like when guys would even start to get popular organically, he'd squash them. He would knock them down and they would start losing, which is weird. And then guys like John Cena, who kids loved.
Yeah.
Kids loved John Cena. But wrestling fans, like me, hated his guts.
That's what I've heard.
We hated him.
Yeah.
I love John Cena present day. I think Peacemaker is hilarious. I want him to succeed. If he gets into that ring, kill him. Knock him dead. I hate Cena sucks. I will yell it in front of a 6-year-old's face. I hate him.
That's hilarious.
Because he's just the unstoppable good guy that can beat up everybody, and everybody he fights is foreign.
Yeah, he's the Superman of the WWE.
And I hated him.
Yeah.
Right? But he's good at his job. He never got over with wrestling fans that were adults when he came in.
Yeah,
never did. Like,
there's more wrestlers now that have transcended wrestling than I've ever remembered in my past.
Never, yeah. There was never one. There was never one. Hogan kind of did.
Hogan. I could see the argument that he has his audience, right? And then Stone Cold Steve Austin He tried to get into the movies and stuff. He had one that I thought was a great premise. They just kind of shit the bed on.
Where they hunt him?
Yeah. On the island when he's like a
most
prisoner.
dangerous Stone Cold?
Yep.
I love that.
Excellent. So there have been people that have tried, but now we have Batista. Yeah. We've got, John Cena. There's more wrestlers in popular media now than ever.
This is just for any nerds out there that I'm guessing you have some pretentious nerds also. You don't think so?
You've got to. I think
Alexander Kozlov plays the muscle on one of the seasons of The Wire.
Who is Alexander?
A tiny guy that John Cena beat up.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Not tiny. He's a great big Russian.
Yeah.
Minor wrestler, but it's just funny. I was watching The Wire, and I was like, that's the guy from Pro Wrestling, which is such a weird,
It's funny.
Hey, in this very, very great, critically acclaimed, wonderful... Hey, that's a pro wrestler.
There's a pro wrestler in there? That's great.
Even my friends who love The Wire have no idea because he's just a tough looking foreign dude. Yeah, but that's Kozlov.
Yeah, nice.
Weird for me. Way to go! I'm glad he's working.
So why do you think it didn't work with the Roman guy? Because he seems to be like he's
the chosen one. Like
the love.
Yep, they love him, and
they do now. Why do you think it didn't work the first time when they tried to make him the hero?
I think
because he's a bad guy now.
Now he is, yeah. I think it didn't work for the same reason I don't like him now. He's not very good.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like, he's not very charismatic. He's not good on the mic. He does not connect with an audience.
Yeah.
He is very handsome. He's a good-looking man.
Yeah, I've heard he's basically the Aquaman of...
Yeah, he looks a lot like... I honest to God think his push... This isn't even a joke. I think his push happened because he... came into the business right when season 1 of Game of Thrones came out.
Okay.
And WWE loves to cannibalize pop culture. Pro wrestling loves to cannibalize pop culture, just in general.
Yeah.
The Road Warriors are called the Road Warriors. Yeah. Like, it's gross, you know. I think he thought that guy was going to win Game of Thrones because he was tall, and this guy kind of looks like him, and he was like, that's our new dude. Yeah. I swear to God, I think it's that simple. Nope, that's the dude that he looks like. Yep, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that character died early, but Roman Reigns has been around 8 years later.
Another funny thing about
I will fight, like I would defend this hill. I might not die on it, but I'll make you wonder how committed I am to it. Like you'll be like, this guy's in pretty deep. Yeah. So anyway, I'm sorry, I just want to complete this book.
Go for it.
So when all those guys left the WWE, Vince McMahon decided he's never going to let anybody get bigger than. John Cena didn't get over with wrestling fans. So John Cena could not have left and made a company.
Okay.
If John Cena would have left the WWE and gone to TNA, I would not have followed him.
Okay.
He could eat my butt. I hate him. You know, like...
Gotcha.
But he can be WWE's top guy, and he can do all of the press, and he's very likable. But he can't go to an indie scene. And when some indie guy starts to get popular, Vince McMahon would knock it down immediately. You can't be our best guy. Our best guy can only work in this system.
Yep. Or they do some kind of exclusivity where you can't do that anymore. You're all in here.
They also, John Cena did not put on very many good matches at the height of his whatever. That's not what he was about. He was about getting beat up for 5 minutes and then doing his 3 things and winning, just like Hulk Hogan.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Which is underdog. Which is not what nerds like, which is not what the real fans want. We want to see big, weird stuff. We want, oh my God, that guy's going to kill himself.
Yeah.
But you don't want your star taking any risks. So I think, anyway, they tried to do the same with Roman Reigns.
It just didn't work.
Because Roman Reigns, as much as John Cena wasn't fun in the ring and I hated his character, that man is a charming performer. Like, that man has some charisma.
Yeah.
Roman Reigns doesn't. He's really handsome. And I've heard he is kind of cool, like in real life.
In real life.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I don't want bad things to happen to him. I just don't like him. You know?
The amount of people that can't disconnect a character from a person is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
It's scary to hear that like such and such actor had to do whatever because a fan couldn't disconnect that they didn't like him in a movie.
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah. But I think it's the same thing now with that guy. I don't think him going anywhere. It would be a big deal because it's a big name leaving the company. But people don't really want to see Roman Reigns matches.
Yeah, because is he considered the number one guy right now? Like just
by a mile.
Yeah,
like there is no number 2.
Okay.
Or rather, there are 40 number 2s.
Okay,
like that would make more sense.
So who's your favorite? And I guess why? Because I'm probably not going to know who they are.
Right now, I'm my favorite died.
Like in real life?
Yeah, Bray Wyatt died recently this year.
Okay.
Young, sad, whatever.
Yeah, I'm not even familiar with who he is.
Bray Wyatt was the creepy guy that wore a mask.
Okay.
But I can also totally cop to this. He hasn't been used well in a while. And so like that's kind of hard because it was like, oh, he's like, oh no, I can acknowledge like it wasn't. But when he was at his best, God, he was so creative and weird.
Creepy guy in a mask is normally like I told you, Kane.
Yeah.
Kane was my
I
favorite.
think you would like watching some Bray Wyatt stuff because it was weird.
Yeah.
And he played like a cult leader when he started, which was real fun. That was my favorite iteration of him.
Cool.
Yeah, it was.
That sounds awesome.
It was wonderful. Yeah, and I did. I loved the goofy character.
Yeah.
Right now, I really like a guy named Kevin Owens.
Okay.
And I'm kind of surprised because normally I only like big tall dudes or whatever, but Kevin Owens is a great performer. He makes me believe it.
Okay.
And I don't know what that means, but he does. Because, like, I know it's fake, and I know you would never really fight like that. Like, I love actual fighting. Like,
But it's like everybody loved Rey Mysterio. But if you tried to do any of that stuff in
a fight, like,
get out of here.
that's a bad move.
Yeah.
Oof, I'm just going to walk this way and watch you cripple yourself. Yeah. But, like, Kevin Owens is just fun. Also, one time during a feud, he made fun of the guy he was wrestling because the guy had tweeted about how he loved the book The Secret.
Okay.
And Kevin Owens book shamed him because that's a garbage book.
That's
and
funny.
only dumb. And it was one of those like that I like him.
That's hilarious. I have heard that a lot of people that like wrestling like when it gets a little unhinged because before or after every fight is when they talk.
Yeah.
So many people, because I know in comedy, there's so many people that love wrestling. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of them say that those are their favorite parts because that's where it feels like something could happen, right? Because the match is going to happen.
Yeah.
What they say before and after and real life beef and stuff, that's where the risky stuff is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It is super fun. But I also, like I said, I had lapsed for a while, but I got back into it because of video games.
Okay.
And I would honestly think if you wanted to get into it, it's probably find the thing you like immediately.
Yeah.
And then just kind of watch it as filler TV. Okay. Don't put much like emphasis on it.
Yeah. I think another reason that they might struggle getting new people is because it's like One Piece. Because I'm a big anime guy. I love anime, man.
I totally know what you mean. When you're about to say this, I have wanted to get into One Piece for about 6 years.
Not 1,058.
And I'm scared
episodes.
of it. Yeah, and I don't like it. So it's one of those like I've even read about it. So like I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm not gonna watch it. It's just too much.
Yeah, because wrestling's been going on so long. If it's just like I'm going to tune in, what is going on?
And it's some people's favorite. It's not just their favorite. It's their only thing. Like, and that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to you might be able to extrapolate this on everything for white dudes over 30.
Yeah.
But like it's hard for me to realize my opinion doesn't matter that much.
Yeah.
There's a guy right now that you should know about, Orange Cassidy. Have you ever heard? He's the slacker. Have you seen this guy? He doesn't. He fights with his hands in his pockets.
That sounds like a Tekken character. That's amazing.
It's really funny, right? And like he does stuff like he dodges you for a while, and like when people interview him, I don't know, like, and it's really funny. Some
great.
people hate it, right? And I understand it. I love it.
That sounds to me, if I were to get into wrestling, it would be the cult guy. It would be the hands in the pockets guy. It would always be the weird shit.
Yeah. Yep. Like I like that. But I can enjoy the guys that are like, no, this guy just chops the hell out of them. I like the impact. I like the illusion of. I get that too. You know, like there are so many different things to like, and it's also weird the things that outrage me. I am totally okay with Rey Mysterio running around and swinging on the ropes to kick you. However, when somebody grabs you by the feet and does like the slingshot where they fall back, I hate it. I hate it. I want to walk out of the building. I want my money back. Like, which is so absurd that's the no, that's stupid. That's
so funny.
That's stupid. Didn't that girl just hypnotize a guy? Well, yeah. So I don't know. Like if she'd have hypnotized him into jumping, that's totally kosher. That was awesome. Yeah. But I guess but I say this all the time. I am fine with any ridiculous whatever so long as you follow your rules.
Yes.
And that one breaks my rules. Because it's one of those, if you're telling me the violence is real, I'm fine with somebody being able to spit mist. A magic viscous. I love the mist spit.
Yeah. Well, back to Star Wars, right? Yeah. I was fine with Star Wars until Force healing.
Yeah. Fair enough.
It's like so many people have died. Literally so many loved characters have died, and you're telling me that out of your fucking ass, you're just like, no, actually that gut stab that killed Qui-Gon Jinn could have been completely fine.
I understand that.
30 seconds.
I will say I've enjoyed the new Star Wars on Disney TV shows. Okay. I like almost all of them. Like I think they're just, but I do hate that nobody dies now.
I know.
It really
it's what finally broke me.
I didn't like it when they shot Timothy Oliphant.
Okay.
I didn't like it when he died, but I hated him being okay more.
Yep.
Like, same with the cool blue guy.
Loss is what drives things, right? Like, you have to find that balance between Game of Thrones, where everybody died, so you don't really care about most people, and holding on to everybody so there's no risks, right? Yeah. Losing Qui-Gon Jinn was a huge deal. It was Liam Neeson. Like, it was such a gut-wrenching moment to the whole thing that kept the glue of the episode together. As much as you can shit on episode 1 for Jar Jar Binks and stuff like that. But loss is what is an essential push for a compelling story. And it doesn't have to be people necessarily either, you know?
Yeah, but it has to have weight. Like, it has to have teeth to it.
Yeah, because at the end of episode 5, right, with Hoth, they lost their home base, and there was this big loss moment that pushed them.
I feel like, similarly, I think fear is... I didn't enjoy any of the prequels because I wasn't afraid of any of the bad guys.
That makes a lot of sense.
And, like, I know that... But, like, it's one of those where I'm like, well, I know that... I know he's going to become Darth Vader. Yeah. Like, I'm fully aware of that. And I know that he's going to become the Emperor. I'm not scared of that eventuality.
Yeah. So you had to go off Count Dooku, Darth Maul, General Grievous.
And Darth Maul was pretty scary, but Darth Maul was only on screen for, what, half an hour?
Yeah.
Like, he got wiped
He's like
out.
The Boba Fett of the prequels.
Yeah, like, he did looks cool.
Badass stuff.
Looks neat, yeah.
And then was out.
But an old man's not scary.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's supposed to be, and I know that they've done stuff to, like, retroactively make him very cool. Sure. But when I'm watching that movie, I don't give a shit about that old man.
I wasn't scared of him, but I appreciated the fact that they went with a tactician villain rather than, like, a menacing presence.
Sure.
Because you don't know what's going on in his head, you know?
Yep.
So I liked that, but it still wasn't Darth Vader, you know?
And all Grievous ever did was run away. And I get that, like, I understand even now. I've read something where George Lucas wanted that. Like, he wanted little sniveling bad guy. And little sniveling bad guy is great, but I have to see his malice.
He looked like a badass.
Yeah. And so it wasn't anything. It was just, I didn't feel any sense of accomplishment when he was beaten.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel anything at all. I had no connection to them.
Yeah.
Because they're, okay. And then the bad guys are going to win?
Yeah. Yeah. But, do you have any future shows coming up? I think we're going to wrap it up here.
I'm on some nonsense around, but nothing to plug specifically.
Nice. Yeah. Do you want to shout out, like, your social medias or anything like that?
Yeah, DJ Dangler. I'm on everything. I'm easy to find.
Right on. Cool. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay tuned. We've got some more shorts coming up. Tyson and I are working on some sketches. We got some reviews coming out. So stay with Nerd News. We'll catch you next time. Thank you all so much. Thank you for checking out Nerd News, everybody. We don't have advertising, so you are the advertising. If you like it, tell a friend, like, comment, subscribe, even leave a review on Apple. Everything that you do to support us, we truly appreciate it. And we actually just launched our Patreon, so if you'd like to support us even more, you can go check that out. All of our content is free. We have different rewards for different tiers, so check that out. And thanks again. We'll catch you next time.